how do we, get ourselves into a space where we can replicate this messaging that we see coming from these guys? I mean, we know that Siya Kolisi has been kind of championing the idea of stronger together and all of that jazz. I mean, most of the people would have seen this. Yeah. Even when he spoke union buildings, telling the president, by funding, let's learn from this thing, trying to lecture the president, as it were. Yeah. But there is a genuine sort of feeling that I think the guys as a team, and I continue to argue as well that even their winning was not an individualized winning. You couldn't pick up a certain player. Yes, Steph to it, we know 28 tackles, but this World Cup has been about this team working for each other and pushing each other and making sure that they do for us as a country. This messaging was there in 2019. Every time Siya speaks, he speaks about South Africa and all of that jazz. And one of his other sort of friends, Sonny Bill Williams from New Zealand, he also, I mean, when he congratulated the Springboks on the final, he said, this is, congratulations, Springboks, hardly, he said hardly to the New Zealand team, and he said these guys, they need it more. It's not just for them, and that continues to be an observation that I find from him, that this thing is for the country. It's not just about. So how do we move on from there? How do we replicate this thing, if possible?
I'm not sure I can answer that. I'm not sure I can answer that question directly.
Yeah. No, there's quite a lot of things to get there.
Look, I mean, when I started thinking about this, I was thinking, look, this goes, as everybody knows, as far back as 1995.
Yeah, sure.
Madiba tried to use exactly this as a rallying call for the country to come together, and of course, it also went on to. It went on to be presented in that movie, Invictus.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. It was a magical moment, and the country needed it quite a lot at that point. Of course, skepticism is that almost 30 years on, the inequalities, the racial divide seems to be as strong as ever. That sort of thing. Which is why your question is legitimate. Are these moments, these magical moments, momentary, and we have no mechanism of reproducing and sustaining the gains of the particular moment? Are we in 6 months' time going to be back to our
fighting and doing all of that jazz? Yeah,
but I'm thinking perhaps not. Perhaps the assessment is not quite fair. We're talking off air. That when this narrative was, as it seeds in 1995, we were talking of Chester Williams.
Yeah.
Now, with the fourth World Cup win, we've got a very different composition of the Springboks team than it was then. And we also know that there's a lot of work that's been happening in schools and grassroots and so on. The Siya Kolisi story in itself, while it's a story of almost a rags to riches kind of story, but it is also a story about rugby and how it can transform the life of an individual to the point where it impacts a nation. His story, being raised by his grandmother, not even enough food to eat, did not even have socks, but through rugby, got a scholarship, went to Grey, has made the kind of friends has made now. Some of them were with him on Springboks. And these small stories replicate themselves over and over and over. And now the story of rugby is now also a story about transforming lives in socio-economic terms, as it were. So there is something to be said about it there. But I think rugby alone might not be a sufficient rallying point. So, for example, often people forget that after rugby, Madiba tried to do the same thing with cricket.
Yes.
1999 World Cup cricket. Where he sat next to Hansi, and so on.
Yes.
And it was the same reason why he was so upfront in the bid for the 2010 FIFA World
2010,
Cup.
World
yeah.
Cup, yeah.
Because they won the bid in 2004.
Yeah.
That was like hardly 10 years into democracy. And they to push for it as well, you know. So it does emphasize that sport, you know, rugby right now, of course, because it's at the largest world stage, won the World Cup the 4th time, more than any other team in history, considering that they only joined
in 95,
when
Yes.
there'd already been 2 World Cups before that, you know, which is extraordinary.
Yeah.
But I think the most beautiful part, or one of the most beautiful parts, is what you've touched on. What is possible to be achieved even by what might appear like an average team.
Yeah.
You know, because I was thinking, at some point I said, well, maybe it's the bias of age. I'm thinking, this team, could I compare it with that team of the Stranskis and the Pinals and the James Smalls and whatnot? I don't quite think so.
Yeah.
But together, with the kind of team spirit they have, they made it. And it required a lot of grit because of the narrow margins that they were just managed to get through by to sustain them right up to the end until they win. So in a sense, they've built a narrative of what's possible with the right spirit. Because I think the biggest thing here is not even just the physical aspect, but the sort of, if you like, the spirit in which all of this is being done. And you can see it's palpable in the communities around us. I mean, I went to Mdantsane and came back this morning and then came back this afternoon. And just it was palpable. Actually, I took some videos of just people sides of the road and so on.
Yeah.
And I think, but the question remains, of course, that you've said, how do we keep this momentum?
Yeah.
And spread it into all aspects of our lives as
in
a
the
society.
workplace, you know, in all of this, because for me, I have a feeling when I spoke it that we are probably just going to normalize this moment, and the same we did with 2019, the same we did with the 2010 as when the World Cup, when the World Cup was here, where we were kind of jubilant and sort of basked in the moment. We were united, you know. We even were, I mean, if you remember 2010, we were actually even angry against countries like England, who kind of said, no, the people are going to be marked and all of that. Yes, you know. So except for also in Cape Town yesterday, apparently this boy who tried to take the cup. You know, so but
did you really think he was going to get away with it? Like, I mean.
Yeah, but I think the bigger picture really, the reason for me that makes me to kind of think it's a question to be asked is how do we really, strategically and perhaps maybe as a country or even in our own small corners, you know, how do we take this moment and make it a lesson and begin to say, if you're an executive in ABSA or in any other big corporation, you know, how do you then look at this and say, look, what these guys have done maybe demand of me. Because I mean, Rassi, we know for an example that Rassi said he lost friends, you know, when he made Sia the captain, you know, which is also another subject altogether. Will we ever? I mean, this boy, I think he's raised the bar so much that it will be difficult to find someone of Sia's caliber. Yeah,
with 2 World Cups under his captaincy, that's a big one.
But that particular aspect for me, socially, you know, how do we really take that and interpret it into our own sort of daily environment in your workplace, you know, and make sure that, because there's a lot of things that have been shared by these guys which seem genuine. They grew up together, how they are and how they, even in the conferences, press conferences that they've had. I mean, you remember Manili Bok, where Sia actually defended him, and he continues to defend some of the, you know. So for me, is it possible really to take that, or if it's not possible, but can we use that as a learning mechanism for wherever we are in the country, as it were?
We can use it as a learning mechanism, but the way, like the reality of things is, it's gonna take a while. I don't think, I'm not sure whether I can say we don't want to be united, or we want to be united, but there are people that don't want to unite with us. You know, we are on that scale whereby something is not balancing along the way, you know. So for me, it is going to take a while for us to be as united as we get when there's sports that we are both, you know, everyone is basically supporting. So I think people's minds are not fully transformed as yet to be at that level. Because sizoba writing and maybe for the next month, we're going to have this excitement, this exuberance in the workplace as well. But regular programming always like
we go to our default.
Exactly. I mean, even in the workplace, like everything's like, go Spokie, guys. Like, you know, this is nice. Like, can we just, you know, press on and keep on being like this, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it will reassert itself. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to take a while because there are people that, you know, are not coming to the party. There are people that are in the party, but when they want to be outside of the party. But when there's something that they feel, by man, you know what, let's come to the party and support this particular thing, they will come in, but they will retract themselves soon after the dust is, you know, settled.
But look, that's to be expected. You know, you've heard people talk about the Pareto principle, the 80-20 and all of that. There will always be individuals and even sectors or sections of the community that will not go with the if you like, the spirit that is there. But that should not be a reason to then abandon the effort. Of course, the story for the Springboks, unlike any other sport, is because of its sustained wins over time. You know, the 4 World Cups and that sort of thing. And so, again, sort of re-emphasizing the message again and again and again.
And perhaps maybe creating the platform, those wins, they do you think they create the credibility and sort of you gain kind of the right to be able to make those?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my point. That look, it's not like it's a fluke. It can be a fluke. You now have a sufficient track record for you to be able to say this is solid, and in terms of demonstrating what is actually possible, as it were. Like I said, it's not only about the winning a cup; it's also about lives that have been transformed. In the process. And those lives that have been transformed in the process are lives that are being looked up to. You know, whether it's
I mean, Cheslin.
I had another kid again saying Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
Yes. And actually, Elizabeth.
And I could see how they were interacting with all these kids who are still playing probably Cubs rugby, you know, and taking their time. I wasn't quite surprised actually that their tour took longer, because I noticed that in some of the instances, like in Cape Town, they would actually deliberately stop to interact, you know, particularly when they see young people, schoolboys that are playing rugby and so on. At the airport yesterday, they did something similar like that as well. So you also almost have the hope of an emerging generation that's up and coming. That does not have perhaps some of the baggage that the older generation has. That might make more. That might make more out of this moment than those who are older. Because the older are somewhat ambivalent. Because then maybe the younger generation don't have much of the kodwa. That's the thing.
Because, you know, one of the things that I picked up, guys, I mean, is speaking about kids, there was, I don't know whether this guy is a principal or whatever, but in France where they were staying, they visited that school, and this guy was going on about, and he was also picking up the Springboks to win. This is after even they've beaten France. How these guys interact with the kids and how giving they are and how, sort of the humility that he picked up, from the Springboks team. And I think for me, part of those lessons, they really, really go a distance in terms of what this team is and what this team stands for, and what their intentionality is in terms of making sure that the picture, and perhaps maybe what stays after everything else, is the fact that this team is not an ordinary team. It's a team that really is there for the country and for each other, as it were. And I think those things, they are just nuggets upon nuggets, which I think we are still going to see. I mean, also on Twitter, there was this, they put in two famous pictures there. Joost and Faf, when they were, Joost was, when Faf was still young, and also Sia and Skalkberg, when Sia was getting an autograph from Skalkberg. So those things have kind of been. There's a tonnage that comes from those things that kind of speaks to the thing that you were saying.
The language. There's also from one of Sia's interviews how he says, no, actually our relationship with the coach goes to when we were schoolboys. When I was 17 years old, I couldn't even tackle and all these kinds of things, And it says me and this one and that one, like 4 or 5 of them. We're now on the Springboks team, We've kind of had a. So there is, if you like, a legacy. That looks like it might be sustained. That has been building over the years.
I think, everyone, the whole thing, we are just wanting to now see, for me, the chances of a spillage of this into
other areas.
Into other areas. I mean, we know that a lot of people are trying very hard, and we know that we know how we are as black people. We find it very difficult to watch this cricket thing, but people are trying to exert the same kind of energy onto cricket.
Say, what's going on now? What now?
Cricket, I think cricket needs a certain amount of concentration and patience.
And
also it takes a lot for you to understand it.
Yes, exactly.
And the excitement, you don't have the same sort of action that we.
If you're going to watch the whole day and they go to tea and come back, they go for lunch.
If it's raining, then they stop and then they come back up.
But then they have to do complex calculations.
Exactly.
But they're doing well.
No, they are.
They're doing well.
I don't know. Are they winning now?
And especially the very next day when they were beating New Zealand.
Yeah, they beat New Zealand.
It was like the very next day.
No, I think New Zealand and England. I mean, we've really come out for those two countries.
I also picked up yesterday that New Zealand has been beaten in sheep share.
Yeah, I saw that by South Africa. Yeah, 2 guys and 1.
Oh no!
So hey, when we come for everything.
On all fronts.
It's really funny. I mean, I did see that.
But that is the thing. Nothing succeeds like success. Because once the thing, this winning feeling comes, it begets more winning.
Yes.
And this is why we needed to spill spill over in all. I mean, our economy needs that kind of jumpstart and all of these things. Really, and also the kind of mindset, that which is why I think we're raising this subject, guys, is that there's a type of mindset that comes with this, which we need as a country in all the spaces that in which we are. It could be also in relationships. All of these, all areas of
overspill.
We need the spillage. The energy. So
by the way, talking about relationships, there's also this thing of seeing how their families and wives were there, and how all of them were interacting with their wives. There's almost like a family orientation to the whole Springboks team.
Definitely.
So it was actually quite a
Because remember the New Zealand team. Some of these teams don't have that because these guys have been allowed to bring their families over and so forth. I mean, look at the New Zealand team when it lost and in the final you didn't see family members there. You just saw sad guys there, standing by themselves, which is really part of the lessons I think we must continue to learn from this team.
Oh, no, definitely.
No, definitely, yeah.
Guys, yeah. Any words on this subject? Are we done with this subject now? I'm
Absolutely.
waiting for my two guests.
It might not be everything. It might not be the panacea for racial divide.
For sure, yeah.
That is certainly a significant moment that could be capitalized on.
Oh yeah. No, definitely. So, guys, we are just going to take a break and look for my guests if they are here now. We are just going to play you maybe a double play. Let's do a double play now. Some music for you guys whilst we wait for my guests. And so we have just discussed the Springboks and the example that they are putting out there, and how maybe that example can, begin to move us as a counter forward. Ufani Nzingo, we also need to see government showing some energy in uplifting development in sport.
That's my colleague.
Yeah.
And we're always talking rugby. He's a rugby coach.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. And I think that, it remains for me one of the sort of things that with the sporting department I fail to really see. And maybe, it's some of the things that we need to really go into. I fail to see their significance, because sometimes some of these sporting codes, they really need just an arm up, to lift them and to direct them into the right paths. But in this particular incident, I don't know whether they are just basking in a machinery that is already moving, because Springboks have really matured now as not just Rugby South Africa has matured.
Institution.
Yeah, as an institution, it's really kind of solid, and maybe there are many other sort of sporting codes that can learn from them. We know that cricket in the last 2-3 years, there was a lot of problems with cricket, racism and all of that. Yeah. So we hear you. We hear you, Fanny. So we taking music, guys, and then when we come back, hopefully my guests will be here. What am I playing now? You Got It Bad and Wet, Wet, Wet. Love Is All Around Me. Those are the two songs we're playing.
Yeah, our playlists are always